This video is about my 1952 Singer model 1591. Now, this is in a bentwood case. You see the bottom of the case there. And the 1591 is an electric machine. It is the only machine, I believe, that Singer made that has what is called a potted motor. And instead of an external motor that would be at the bottom down here with an external belt, this motor is mounted right there on the back of the machine. And the reason this is important is there's no belt, but it's directly connected to the gears of the machine. And that makes this a very powerful machine because the motor goes right to those metal gears that are in there and powers the machine. This is a beautiful machine. They're sometimes called industrial strength. I don't know if I'd go that far, but they're very strong, very powerful, very reliable machines. This one has simple decals. I'm pretty sure this is the filigree pattern. It might be trefoil pattern, decal pattern. And the machine itself is in excellent condition. The 1591s have forward and reverse, which is different from my other antique machines, which only have straight stitching. I'm going to use this machine to sew something, but also I'm going to show you how to wind a bobbin. And what I wanted to show you is this is probably the original bobbin winder tire. And as you can see, it's old and starting to crack. Now, I could use this the way it is, but it's really better to put a replacement tire on there. You can find them at different auction sites, or there are sewing machine parts online, or maybe even your local Singer store would have one. I have one that is also old, but not quite as old, from another machine. So I'm going to change that bobbin winder tire before I sew with this or wind a bobbin. Now, the bobbin winder only goes up and down. And this is the up position, and it still is not very far away from the hand wheel. So to get this off of there, you are just going to pop it off, but it has to fit in between the bobbin winder and the hand wheel to come off of there. So you have to reach behind and then kind of turn it and fiddle with it to get it to kind of come out of the way. And what I don't want to happen is that it breaks in half or something, because just in case the one that I have in my hand, the replacement one, doesn't quite fit the same or something. But this is really old and deteriorating as I do this. And I almost have it. And very old, very cracked. But that's very easy to get off. This is the replacement one, which I also have to fiddle with a bit to push it in between the hand wheel and the bobbin winder. But because it's more flexible, I can do that a little bit more easily. Now, that's all it takes to change the bobbin winder tire. But what I have to make sure of is that it's still going to engage with the hand wheel when I engage the bobbin winder. There's the bobbin winder engaged, and there's disengaged. This lever is all you do to push it down. And I can't move it, so I believe it's engaged correctly. We'll see when I go to wind a bobbin. Okay, there are 5 bobbins on the bed of the machine. These 3 in the back are class 15 bobbins, which is what this machine takes, being a 1591. By the way, the 1590 is the other version of there are several versions of Model 15 machines, but the 1590 is another somewhat commonly found Model 15. There's also a Model 115, which I had one that had beautiful gingerbread decal pattern on it, and that was a treadle machine. So the Class 15 machines have been around for a while with Singer, and like I said, this is a 1591 with the motor that is mounted directly to the gears. This is a Class 66 bobbin, which would go in a Model 66, and this is a Class 66 bobbin that is very old, from like the 1800s, early 1900s, and you can see that the Class 15 bobbins in the back are flat on the top and on the bottom. Both 66 style bobbins are curved. They're slightly different from each other, but those are both curved. So you want to make sure you have the correct bobbin for your machine, and that the Model 15s have vertically mounted bobbin cases. And you may think that's harder to work on instead of a drop-in bobbin, but it really isn't, because what you do is you reach in and there's a little arm. That's the arm right there that you can almost see. You open that arm up and you pull the bobbin case right out, and that's the bobbin case with the bobbin in it. And you'll see there is a vertical arm. This is the way, if you were looking at the machine, that's the way the bobbin case fits into the vertical area. I forget what they call that, the bobbin casing. There is a term for it, and it's just not coming to me right now, but this is how the bobbin case fits into that area, and this is the arm that you can see right there, and you have to lift this arm to release the bobbin most of the time. And actually that bobbin shouldn't have come out unless I released the arm, unless I loosened it when I released it from the case. So what I'm going to do is wind a new bobbin on this machine. Here's an empty bobbin. The bobbin winder is on the right hand side of the machine, right there, as I just showed you. And this looks like a very simple bobbin winder, where you basically are just going to push the bobbin on to the bobbin winder. There's probably a little pin there that one of the holes has to line up with, so that it's on there all the way. Let me just check if there's a pin there. Yes, there's a pin right there. So this clips on like that, and then what you do is you just push this arm down, and you can see that holds the bobbin right in place. There's sunlight coming from the window behind, but I think you can see that clearly. I'm going to take the thread from the spool. The Model 15s have they're threaded on the rear of the machine. So the thread guide on the faceplate is actually on the top rear of the machine. And they also have a thread guide down here. So I'm going to de-thread the machine, but I'm going to leave. I'm going to put the thread in the thread guide for sewing, for the upper thread on the faceplate. And then I'm going to bring it over to the front. I got to the point of saying, why would they do it like that, when I realized they didn't. So I'm not going to use the faceplate thread guide, and I'm going to take the spool of thread. That is why they have this other thread guide at the bottom. And you know, I do this all the time, but you wouldn't think it by that, would you? So it goes to that thread guide right here. Then it's going to go straight up to the bobbin, and the thread is going to go from the inside to the outside of the bobbin. Okay, so I have the bobbin in place with the thread going from the inside to the outside. I have the bobbin winder engaged. I push that arm down and engage the bobbin winder. I have loosened the clutch wheel, which is over here on the hand wheel, and I've turned it toward me, and what that does is disengage the needle bar. So there's the bobbin winder, and because this is an electric machine, and see that I want to make sure that this bobbin tire is hitting the machine, the hand wheel correctly. And it is, and it's turning, but it's not turning the bobbin. So at this point, that bobbin should be turning, and because it isn't, I have to get another bobbin winder tire. You can see this is how this all functions, but if that tire is not hard enough and you know, firm enough and wide enough and the right height from the wheel, they're just, especially on this machine where there's only two positions, there's you know, disengaged or engaged. On some of the other antique machines, you can just push them in a little bit. Maybe I could try that. But see, it's still not turning the bobbin tire wheel consistently enough to wind the bobbin. So what I'm going to do is I will get a replacement bobbin tire. But in this you can see that is how you wind a bobbin. And it's very simple. You just pop that on there, engage the bobbin winder, disengage the clutch wheel, wind your bobbin. So if I had been able to wind that bobbin, you then take the bobbin off of there, and it'll go back in the bobbin case. You tighten the clutch wheel by turning it away from you. You rethread the machine, and in a moment I'll show you how to put the bobbin back in the case. Okay, so this is a bobbin that has been wound, and I'm going to take this. This is the bobbin case. There is a notch right there, and I'm going to put the bobbin in with the thread toward the inside of the case. Just pop the bobbin in like that. I put the thread in that notch, and you just pull the thread along where that notch leads to. It's a flat metal plate, curved plate, and it brings the thread over just in front of the vertical arm, and you hold it to the left of the arm. So here's the thread over here, there's the vertical arm, and so then all you have to do is open up this other arm on the bobbin case and hold it like that with this might be called the hook, going vertically, and you insert it back into the machine, and there is a slot for that vertical arm to fit. And for some reason I'm just not getting it on there correctly. And here's where you make a simple mistake and don't even realize you're doing it. I didn't raise the needle, and the bobbin and the case wouldn't go back on there because I hadn't raised the needle. So let's try it again, and it pops right in place. So now the bobbin is in there. I guess you can pull the thread up that way, although just to make sure it doesn't get caught on something. And then I can show you again how I pop that in. The needle is raised. I just took it out by using that little arm as a handle, and it goes right in again, and you want that vertical arm to fall into the slot that is there for it. And now I had re-engaged the needle bar, and as you can see, the needle will go up and down. And now I'll just show you how this machine sews. This is just a square piece of fabric with two pieces of fabric with batting in the middle, and I'm going to use it as a sample of how fast this machine is. This machine is very fast. And I'm going to stop if I have to, because I have to hold the camera, and this really is a machine that moves. You can hear I don't think I had the camera quite on the sewing. You can hear the power in the motor on this. I mean, you can just hear the power in the motor. It just goes. And this is your typical quilting layers. And then we have reverse on this machine. And of course, if you've noticed, I'm having kind of a funny time with this. I hadn't rethreaded the machine, but that's how it runs. And when you have it threaded and you have the right bobbin winder tire, there aren't any problems. Since I hadn't rethreaded the machine, I'm going to do that now. I've got the thread coming on the thread guide at the top of the faceplate. The tension on a 1591 is toward the back. You basically just bring the thread around through two discs. You can see right there, but you come around from the back through the discs, and then there is a tension spring that you go right up through, and then you go to the thread guide at the top of the needle bar. Then there is another thread guide right here on the front, and as I raise the needle, on this machine, there is a thread guide on the right of the needle, and that's a good indication that the machine is going to thread from the right to the left. And I have the manual right here if I needed to check it. But what I'm going to do is just slide the thread into that thread guide and go ahead and thread the machine from the right to the left. There are a few models that thread this way. The 221, the 201. I think the 115 I used to have threaded this way. And of course I don't have my glasses on. So I've rethreaded the machine, which I should have done the first time when I went around. And actually what I also didn't do that I usually do is let the machine pick up the bobbin thread before I start a project. I would normally do just that. One stitch, two stitches, let the machine pick up the thread, and then pull the spare fabric toward the back. Now, in this case, you can see that it did not completely pick up the bobbin thread. I changed the bobbin thread to pink. So let's try it again. I think it's because I only did one stitch, and I'm going in reverse, which doesn't really matter. Okay, so now you can see that the bobbin thread and the upper thread are both picked up. Normally what I do is I have a spare piece of fabric near the machine, and when I put a new bobbin in, I use a little piece of fabric to do what I just did with the larger project. Larger square, larger piece of fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch around this square again, just to give you an idea of how the machine runs. The bobbin winder tire that I need, they're not very expensive, but you can see how it can be annoying because if I needed this machine today, and that's a common mistake where I didn't pull enough thread through the needle in order to have it stay threaded when I started the machine. But the bobbin winder tire, what I was saying is that it's a very easy, little, inexpensive part, but if it's not correct on the machine, then you can't really wind a bobbin. I could put tape on this one maybe, you know, tape it around to make it a little bit taller or firmer. I could fiddle with it, but I am just going to wait until I buy one. Okay, I'm certainly not doing this machine justice today with the little issues I've had and the little mistakes I've made. And it's such a beautiful machine to use and a wonderful machine to use. So I've rethreaded my needle. I've got everything all set up. I have my bobbin in there. I know my bobbin's in there correctly. And this machine is from 1952. And you can, like I said, just hear what a nice machine this is, how smooth that motor runs, how smooth the stitches are. The stitches are very, even if I had them on a larger stitch length, they're very fine stitches, delicate. It's just a wonderful machine to have. Now what that was the clutch wheel coming disengaged. So I think what I'm going to do is get my bobbin winder tire. I'm going to make sure I have everything set up on this machine because I just did that to it and maybe didn't have the clutch wheel tightened tight enough. I'm going to give it a nice oiling. The oiling holes are right at the top. You should check your manual to make sure, but I'm pretty sure you just put oil here, here, and in this larger one, you would not oil the motor. The motor is sealed, but you wouldn't do that anyway because you should never put oil in a motor. Motors take a special lubricant, which is different from oil. And I'll have to check the manual, but I'm pretty sure you can put oil in the top of the needle bar. And simply because that, if this is a pressure regulator for the pressure foot, which I think it is, then you want to keep that oiled anyway. This has a piece of felt here, so that's probably another oiling point. Singer has manuals. If you can't find an original, they have reprints. And I'll probably be doing a second video with how the machine performs when I'm not making the minor mistakes that I've made here, such as not tightening the clutch wheel enough, not having the right bobbin winder tire, and expecting to just sit down and sew without paying attention to just those tiny little things can sometimes cause an issue. But it's a beautiful machine, in beautiful shape, very powerful, and it does take all of the Singer vintage attachments. It's a side clamper So you can put a zigzagger, a hem stitcher, a sock darner. You can put all of those attachments on this machine.